In early 2024, a chilling warning, stark and unambiguous, echoed from Beijing, reverberating across the South China Sea to Manila. This wasn't a casual remark or a veiled suggestion. It was a deliberate and calculated message, designed to send a clear signal. It wasn't whispered in diplomatic circles or confined to backroom discussions, but blared in the People's Liberation Army daily, the official mouthpiece of the Chinese military. The message was public, forceful, and impossible to ignore. The message was direct and to the point. If the Philippines chooses to host American missile systems on its soil, it risks self-inflicted destruction. A stark and unsettling phrase, laden with implications of potential military action and devastating consequences. This was no empty threat or idle boast. It marked a dangerous escalation in the already tense situation in the South China Sea, a region fraught with overlapping territorial claims and simmering geopolitical rivalries. This escalation comes in the wake of repeated incidents where Chinese Coast Guard vessels have harassed Philippine ships, including civilian fishing boats, and interfered with their access to traditional fishing grounds. For the Philippines, these are not abstract geopolitical concepts or distant power games being played out on a map. These actions represent direct assaults on their sovereignty, their economic well-being, and the daily lives of ordinary Filipino citizens who depend on the sea for their livelihoods. Beijing's warning can be interpreted as a form of psychological warfare, a calculated attempt to undermine Philippine resolve. It's an attempt aiming to sow fear and division within Philippine society, creating uncertainty about the costs and benefits of its security alliances. It's also a strategic move framing Manila's long-standing alliance with Washington, a cornerstone of its defense policy, as a dangerous provocation that invites retaliation. Ultimately, China seeks to isolate the Philippines on the international stage, weakening its position and limiting its options. China is attempting to paint the Philippines as a mere pawn in America's broader containment strategy, a tool used to encircle and constrain China's rise. This narrative conveniently ignores the fact that international law, including the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, supports Manila's claims in the South China Sea. The stakes in this ongoing dispute have never been higher. The threat has evolved and now moves beyond mere maritime skirmishes and harassment tactics to the looming specter of a full-blown military confrontation, a scenario that could have devastating consequences for the entire region. The Philippines now faces a perilous and incredibly difficult choice: how to effectively defend its legitimate national interests and protect its people without being caught and crushed in the escalating competition between two global superpowers. The threat is not just a territorial dispute, it's a direct challenge to the nation's agency and its right to make its own decisions about its security and future. It's a blatant attempt to intimidate the Philippines into submission, forcing it to abandon its alliances and compromise its sovereignty. As the world watches with bated breath, every decision made by the Philippine government now carries the immense weight of its future security, its continued independence, and the well-being of its people. Under the leadership of President Marcos Jr., the U.S.-Philippines alliance has experienced a significant revival. This resurgence marks a pivotal shift in the geopolitical landscape of the region. This revival effectively reverses years of a perceived drift toward Beijing, signaling a renewed commitment to traditional alliances and strategic partnerships. The implications of this shift are far-reaching, impacting regional stability and power dynamics. Central to this renewed alliance is the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA. This agreement now grants U.S. forces access to an expanded network of Philippine bases, strengthening military interoperability and responsiveness. This expanded access is a cornerstone of the enhanced security cooperation. These bases stretch from the north, strategically positioned near Taiwan, all the way to the west, along the volatile South China Sea, providing a comprehensive security perimeter. This geographical distribution is crucial for effective monitoring and response capabilities. This isn't just symbolic, it represents a tangible commitment to mutual defense and regional security. The scale and complexity of joint military exercises like Balikatan 2024, which was the largest ever conducted, underscores this commitment. These exercises have showcased a marked improvement in real combat readiness and interoperability between the two armed forces. The focus is on realistic scenarios and advanced training techniques. For Manila, these drills are more than just training exercises. They represent a vital lifeline, a demonstration of unwavering support from a key ally. They serve as a clear signal to Beijing that the Philippines is not alone in safeguarding its sovereign interests and territorial integrity. Furthermore, the U.S. is actively involved in helping modernize the Philippine military, providing crucial resources and expertise. This modernization effort is strategically shifting the Philippine military's focus from internal security concerns to establishing a credible external defense posture. This alliance is not a Cold War relic dusted off, it's a dynamic and evolving partnership. It's a 21st century partnership forged in the crucible of China's increasingly assertive behavior in the region. But this deepening embrace is not without its inherent risks and potential downsides. Forging deeper ties with Washington inevitably makes the Philippines a more central player and a potential target in the escalating US-China rivalry, a dynamic that could have significant consequences for the nation's security. China's increasingly assertive rhetoric and actions are a direct response to this strategic realignment, highlighting the potential for increased tensions. Ultimately, the Philippines is betting that the benefits of U.S. support and security guarantees outweigh the inherent risks of potentially provoking Beijing and escalating tensions in the region. It's a high-stakes wager, a calculated gamble with potentially significant ramifications for the nation's future. It's a bet placed on American credibility, the strength of their commitment, and the enduring resilience of the Filipino people in the face of mounting pressure. China's fury centers on the possible deployment of U.S. ground-based, mid-range missiles like the Typhoon system on Philippine soil. These weapons could threaten Chinese military assets, fundamentally shifting the regional balance and echoing Cold War tensions. Beijing sees them as offensive, not defensive, and warns that any Philippine base hosting such systems would be a priority target. Manila walks a tightrope, insisting EDCA sites are for defense, but ambiguity remains. The mere presence of these missiles could be seen as a provocation, raising the risk of miscalculation. This arms race is fueling militarization across the Indo-Pacific, with each side's defense seen as the other's threat. The shadow of the Typhoon system looms over the region, pushing Southeast Asia closer to great power conflict. For people in Cagayan and Palawan, the US-China standoff is personal. They now live on the front lines. Some welcome the economic boost from US presence, but anxiety runs deep. Will their homes become targets in a war they never chose? Fisherfolk already harassed by Chinese vessels now fear becoming collateral in a missile strike. Local leaders question if Manila truly grasps the risks imposed on their communities. Sovereignty debates cut both ways. Some see US bases as protection, others as a new form of foreign control. These communities bear the brunt of national strategy, living daily with the threat of conflict. Their plea is simple: peace and security in a region bracing for confrontation. Security analysts see the Philippines as a small state walking a tightrope in a great power rivalry. Manila's pivot to the US is a rational response to China's aggression, but it comes with risks. Experts warn that hosting US missiles could entrap the Philippines, making neutrality impossible in a crisis. The country risks becoming a launchpad and a target in any US-China conflict. Economic experts highlight another danger. China is a top trading partner, and Beijing could retaliate with economic coercion. Manila needs US security but can't afford to lose Chinese trade and investment. The consensus: the Philippines is threading a needle, seeking deterrence without triggering catastrophe. Success depends on flawless diplomacy, military restraint, and luck. One wrong move could lead to disaster. The margin for error is vanishingly small. Southeast Asian neighbors watch the Manila-Beijing standoff with deep anxiety. Countries like Vietnam and Malaysia see the Philippines as a test case for pushing back against China. While there's quiet support for Manila's stand, most ASEAN states fear being forced to choose sides. The Philippines' US pivot threatens the region's delicate balance, raising fears of proxy conflict. Official statements urge dialogue and restraint, reflecting a desire to avoid escalation. ASEAN unity is under strain as the US-China rivalry intensifies within the region. The region's future may hinge on how the Philippines' gamble plays out. In the face of increasingly assertive actions and thinly veiled threats from China in the South China Sea, the Philippine government stands firm, resolute in its commitment to defending its sovereign rights and territorial integrity. It is invoking international law, specifically the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, and emphasizing its sovereign rights within its exclusive economic zone, EEZ. President Marcos Jr. has been particularly vocal, insisting that Manila will not be bullied or intimidated into backing down from its position. He has also made it clear that the Philippines will not be forced to abandon its long-standing alliances and partnerships with other nations, particularly the United States. The government carefully frames its security cooperation with the U.S. as purely defensive in nature, aimed at enhancing its maritime domain awareness and protecting its legitimate interests. This stance is firmly anchored in the landmark 2016 arbitral ruling issued by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague. That ruling unequivocally invalidated China's expansive and historically dubious claims to vast swaths of the South China Sea. By consistently championing and upholding this legal victory on the international stage, the Philippines strategically casts its struggle not merely as a territorial dispute over a few islands and reefs, but as a fundamental defense of the rules-based international order that underpins global stability and security. It's a matter of upholding international law, freedom of navigation, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. Deep-seated national pride, a strong sense of sovereignty, and the historical memory of colonial subjugation collectively fuel widespread public support for the government's firm stance against what is perceived as Chinese encroachment. Top government officials consistently assert that all decisions concerning the future and development of Philippine territory will be made solely by Filipinos, within the framework of their own laws and national interests. These decisions will not be dictated or unduly influenced by any foreign powers regardless of their size or influence. But this increasingly assertive and defiant stance is undeniably risky, potentially putting Manila on a dangerous collision course with the economic and military might of Beijing. Every public statement, every diplomatic maneuver is meticulously scrutinized and analyzed not only by China, but also by the United States and other major global powers with vested interests in the region. The Philippines is resolutely asserting its agency and its right to chart its own course, but it is also walking a precarious tightrope over a chasm of potential conflict, requiring skillful diplomacy and unwavering resolve to navigate these turbulent waters. The Philippines faces a tough economic dilemma. China is both a rival and a vital economic partner. Beijing can wield trade and investment as weapons, threatening Philippine exports and tourism if tensions escalate. This risk creates pressure for Manila to tread carefully, balancing security needs with economic realities. The government is trying to diversify trade, strengthening ties with the US, Japan, and others, but this takes time. The economic tightrope is real. Every security move risks economic backlash. The line between security and prosperity is blurring. The Philippines may soon face a stark choice: prioritize defense or economic growth. The stakes for ordinary Filipinos are enormous. The Philippines stands at a crossroads, its choices shaping not just its own fate but the entire Indo-Pacific. On one side, China's pressure and promises of economic reward at the cost of sovereignty. On the other, US support and a rules-based order, but with the risk of becoming a front line in a superpower conflict. The decision is complex. Risk, trust, and national identity all in play. The world watches, as the South China Sea becomes a test of international law versus might makes right. The Philippines' struggle is a microcosm of global competition. Its success or failure will echo far beyond its shores. The fate of a nation, and the region's peace, hangs in the balance.